Good morning, everyone. So, as you know, today's lecture is on preventive orthodontics, part 2. The first lecture being on the space maintenance and space maintainers, different types of space maintainers we have read about, then the factors that affect the planning for space maintenance. Then we have also discussed about the space analysis, the different types of space analysis for the mixed dentition and for the permanent dentition, the types of space maintainers, be it a fixed type of space maintainer or a removable type of space maintainers. So today we will be discussing about space maintainers, specifically fixed type of space maintainers. So the intended learning outcomes of the lecture, at the end of the lecture you will be able to illustrate the various orthodontic prevention methods for incipient malocclusions, define space maintainers, classify space maintainers, and describe the indications, contraindications of the removable or the fixed space maintainers. So what is fixed space maintainers? Space maintainers which are fixed or fitted onto the tooth surface are called as fixed space maintainers. So the various advantages are there for the fixed space maintainers compared to a removable space maintainers. So the fixed space maintainers require minimum tooth preparation. They do not interfere with any passive eruption of the abutment teeth. Jaw growth, as you know, is not hampered because if clasp are given as in a removable space maintainers, that hampers the lateral growth of the jaws. Then succedaneous teeth are free to erupt into the space which is there, the fixed space maintainers. It can be used in uncooperative patients as removable space maintainers require patient compliance and retention to be worn by the patient. The masticatory function is also restored if the pontics are replaced. So moving on to the steps in fabricating a space maintainer. So the steps as mentioned are, first you need to band the abutment tooth. So after which the band material is removed. After banding the abutment teeth, you need to take an impression. Once the impression is taken, the band material is stabilized onto the impression material and pouring of the cast. Once the cast is retrieved, we fabricate the wire component and then soldering of the wire component to the band. These are the few armamentarium that we require for banding. The first being the band material. There are different thickness and sizes for our band material. So either you have a preformed bands or the bands which you have to do pinching and prepare a band material. So the preformed are the ones which are which require less chairside time. Then you have the band cutting scissors, hoe pliers, band pinching pliers. Then you have the Mershon's band pushers. Then you have the band seater, and then at the end you have the band removing pliers. So these are the few armamentarium that you will be needing for banding, as well as the placement and removal of the space maintainer from the patient's. So first we move on to the band and loop space maintainers. So as you can see in the picture itself, that is banding of the tooth and a loop is prepared. So it's a fixed type of space maintainer as it is bond cemented to the tooth surface. Then it's a non-functional because we do not have any replacement of the missing teeth. Then it is passive because it is not applying any pressure or force to the adjacent tooth. Then it is unilateral. So it can be unilateral or bilateral depending upon the situation, so which we will be reading later. So the indications of band and loop appliance, it is given in unilateral loss of primary first molar. If there is bilateral primary loss of the primary molar but before the eruption of the permanent incisors. That means if the permanent incisors have erupted, central incisors have erupted, and there is bilateral loss of the primary molar, then we cannot give band and loop space maintainers. Then the appliance will be, the space maintainer will change from a band and loop space maintainer to a Nance lingual appliance, which we will be discussing later. So the second primary molars is lost after the eruption of the permanent first molar. Again, it is indicated. As you can see here in this picture, this is the E, which is banded, and the D is extracted, and the loop is resting on the canine. Next, we move on to the discussion about the construction of the band and loop space maintainer. So as you can see in the picture, so the band adaptation or band selection is done. So if it is a preformed bands, if you have, then you have to do band selection according to the size of the diameter of the tooth, and then adapt it to the tooth surface, after which impression is taken and pouring of the cast is done. Once the cast is retrieved, then construction of the loop. So once the cast is retrieved, the cast will be present or retrieved with the band around it. So you have to make the loop. So the U loop is made using 0.9 millimeters wire. So the loop must be parallel to the edentulous ridge, and it should be 1 mm away from the gingival tissue. The rest, what you see here on the adjacent tooth, adjacent to the space, should be below the contact point. And the facial-lingual distance should be approximately 8 mm, because this is the approximate diameter of the permanent first premolar. So this space provides the eruption of the permanent first molar to erupt into the oral cavity. Now moving on to the different step-by-step procedure. So first, according to the length or the teeth band and loop, that is the loop required, we need to cut the wire to the size, after which a loop, W-shaped loop is created by using a 3-prong pliers. After which, once the 3-prong the W is created, it is rested or placed on the tooth, the cast, to check for the length of the bend or the placement of the bend where it should be, after which a bend is given. So this bend, as you can see here in the next picture, after this bend there is again another bend which is given, right angle to this bend, which should be the free end should be placed in the middle third of the band. As you can see here, the free end what you have here should be placed in the middle third of the band. So once the loops are prepared, soldering is done. As you can see here, this is modification, that is a crown is there and a loop is once the loop is prepared, you have to do soldering. So as I have mentioned, that the free end should be placed in the middle third of the band. So the various advantages and disadvantages of band and loop space maintainer. The advantages being it's easy to construct. You have little chair side time. So the patient just needs to come for the impression, banding and impression, after which the patient has only needs to come once the appliance is prepared and for the insertion of the appliance, and it is inexpensive. The disadvantages being it does not restore the occlusal function. Since it is not replacing the pontic, it does not restore the occlusal function, and you have to continuously supervise and follow up the patient, because if you see signs of eruption or the tooth has actually erupted, then the band, or you need to even check if there is a break in the loop or the band or debanding has occurred, so you need to replace it, or if the tooth of the permanent tooth has or partially erupted, you need to remove it. So there are various modifications for the crown and loop space maintainer, band and loop space maintainer. So the first being the crown and loop. So crown and loop is used if the adjacent teeth, that is the abutment teeth, has extensive caries. So after pulp therapy or after pulp therapy. So in here what do you see, either it is extensive caries after pulp therapy, the tooth is restored, and then stainless steel crown is being given, after which a loop is prepared and soldered to the crown. But the disadvantage of the crown and loop is it's difficult to repair. So if there is a break or a break of the loop, then the whole the space maintainer has to be removed along with the crown. The alternative method what we can do is you can band the crown and fabricate the loop. So if there is a break or distortion in the space maintainer, then you can just remove the space maintainer without removing the crown. Now moving on to the long band and loop type space maintainer, in which, as you can see here, this is the canines, which the D and the E are both missing. So banding has been done to the 6, that is a permanent first molar. So and a long, it is replacing two missing teeth. Then you have a reverse band and loop type of space maintainer, in which if the second molar, if your second molar is lost before the complete eruption of the permanent first molar, then banding is done for the first primary molar, and the loop is reversed, that is given from the distal side of the first primary molar, and the loop is touching the mesial surface of the permanent first molar. So it is reversed. Next we have the mine space maintainer. Mine space maintainer is similar to that of your band and loop space maintainer, but here only you have only one loop instead of two loops. Minor adjustments are easier to do in this, but the disadvantage being its stability. It's not stable because of only a single loop. The additional of an occlusal rest is another type of modification given by Wright and Kennedy, in which an occlusal rest is prepared on the adjacent teeth. The advantage of this is that it prevents the slippage of the band which is there around the tooth into the soft tissue, but the disadvantage that you need to prepare additional tooth preparation is required for the adjacent teeth. Now moving on to the different type of patients that we have seen is one, this side you can see, as you can see on the a missing tooth, and this is replaced by a band and loop space maintainer, while in the opposite side you can see a crown and loop space maintainer. Again here the same thing, there is a band and loop space maintainer is given because of the missing D, and the opposite side you have a crown which is intact. So this is one of the patient in which there was, these were tooth with pulpal involvement, and both the E's were pulpally involved, and the D, as you can see, was grossly decayed. So the pulpal treatment, the tooth was, both the E's were pulpally treated, that is pulpectomy was done for both of them, after which a crown was used to restore the occlusal structure, after which the root stumps here and the tooth over here was extracted, and a band was placed on the crown, and after which a loop was fabricated. So this is basically a modification of the crown and loop, in which a crown is there and then banding of the crown and then loop is prepared. This again we have a patient in which the extraction space, as you can see here, then band and loop space maintainer was given. This is an opposite, that is the reverse band and loop, in which banding of the D is done and partially erupted 6 and the E is missing. So reverse band and loop space maintainer. So now moving on into the maxillary arch. So we have in the maxillary arch there are two specific designs which are used to maintain the maxillary space. So you have the Nance arch or the transpalatal arch. So the difference between the two type of maxillary arch space maintainer is the wire placement on the palate. So one in which the wire is resting on the, you have a acrylic button which is resting on the rugae area, the other which is the transpalatal, which is running from transversely on the palate without touching it. So first we'll discuss about the Nance palatal arch or the Nance space holding arch appliance. So as you can see from the picture itself, that is, it's a fixed type of appliance. So the banding is done for the molars, that is both the molars over here, and as your D and E is missing, banding is done. So it is a fixed type of space maintainer. Then there is no replacement of the missing teeth, so it is a non-functional. It is passive because it's not applying any force or pressure application, or it's not doing any type of movement, tooth movement, and it is given in the maxillary arch, or it's a maxillary arch appliance. So Nance is the person who has described the preventive lingual arch. It as we have discussed, it consists of bands on the upper molars with the arch wires which is extending into the palatal vault. That is, the bands are placed on the molars and the wires which is extending, and then it is resting on the palatal vault in the rugae area. So the Nance arch, which incorporates a acrylic button, as you can see here clearly in this picture, it incorporates an acrylic button that rests on the palatal rugae. Then acrylic button contacts the palate and it rests on the and it resists, this acrylic button resists the mesial movement or the anterior movement of the posterior teeth. So the disadvantages of the appliance being it causes soft tissue irritation from the acrylic button, because it is almost in contact with the rugae area in the palate. So there might be accumulation of bacteria and food debris between the rugae and the acrylic button. So the acrylic button may get embedded into the palatal tissue due to hypertrophy. So if the palate is in close contact with if the acrylic button is in close contact with the rugae area or the palate, they might cause hypertrophy of the tissues, and that might cause the embedment of the acrylic button into the tissue. Or if some patients are allergic to acrylic, so again you cannot use. The indications being, if it is used as a space maintainer in bilateral loss of the maxillary primary teeth, as we have seen in the previous pictures, that if it is if there is a bilateral loss of the primary teeth, then this space maintainer can be used. It means to reinforce anchorage, and it can also act as a habit breaking appliance. So the construction, so the acrylic button, what you see here, is present on the slopes. It's basically present on the slopes, and it provides for excellent resistance Then the wire, as you can see in this picture, extends from the lingual surface of the bands to the deepest and the most anterior part in the middle of the hard palate. So the wire is extending from the lingual surface of the band to the deepest portion on the palate, and in some we do give the U loops or U bends in the wire to provide retention for the acrylic. And the acrylic button is placed 1 to 2 mm away from the soft tissue. The acrylic button does not touch the soft tissue or the rugae area. Here, as you can see in this patient, this is pre-treatment and this is post-treatment. In this picture, as you can see, the D's, both the D's and even the canine ovea is decayed. So this needs both needs extensive treatment. The tooth cannot be saved, so both of them are extracted. The canines are restored. Banding is done for the molars, that is the E's, after which a wire is extending to the palatal region in the deepest most palatal region, and then acrylic button is prepared, and this is the post treatment. The acrylic button which is resting on the palatal area. Now moving on to the transpalatal arch. So transpalatal arch is the one which is a fixed. Again, as we know, banding is done on the tooth surface, after which it will be cemented to the tooth surface. So it's a fixed, non-functional and a passive appliance, because it is not applying any form of force or pressure on the jaws or the tooth. The transpalatal arch. So the transpalatal arch is made up of wires, as you can see in this picture, which is running across the palatal wall, but it is there is no contact with the palatal tissues. The reason for giving this type of a space maintainer is that because the permanent molars has 3 roots, the palatal root, the permanent molars rotate around the palatal root, so thus allowing the buccal roots to rotate mesopalatally. So this appliance prevents the rotation of the tooth. But if this appliance is only given if there is a single tooth which is extracted or missing. So cross anchorage can be used only if one of the primary molars is lost, if both the permanent molars have erupted. So if both the primary molars have lost, then this is not a correct appliance to be given. Then the Nance palatal arch has to be given. But if a single tooth is lost, then transpalatal arch appliance can be given. Indications of transpalatal being if there is several maxillary teeth which are missing on side, while the other side is still on one side and the other side is still intact. If there is correction of molar rotation, especially because, as you know, this is required for the correction of the molar rotation. It prevents the molar rotation. It can also do molar distalization, or it provides the anchorage and unilateral crossbite for maxillary expansion. The construction, the most important being the central loop. The central loop, is oriented either mesially or distally. So the traditional form can be bent by a technician or by a clinician, or you do get the prefabricated arch forms which are available at different lengths. So the loop which you see here, the central loop, can either face mesially or distally. So the disadvantages being soft tissue irritation is the most common. a slight grooving on the tongue, because as the patient closes the mouth, there will be because it is away from the palate, slightly away from the palate, it might cause slight grooving on the tongue. There might be ulceration of the tongue also. And if it is given, if the appliance, that is a transpalatal arch appliance, is given in bilateral missing teeth, then will be mesial migration will occur. So this is only indicated in unilateral missing teeth. As you can see in this case, there is a single tooth which is unilateral tooth which is missing, not on both the sides. Okay, so in such case you can give a transpalatal arch appliance, but not a but if the same, instead of unilateral, if there was bilateral loss of teeth, then our appliance would have been changed and we would have given transpalatal arch appliance. So now moving on to the lower lingual holding arch appliance. As you know, it is a fixed type of space maintainer. It is a non-functional, applying no pressure and no expansion or rotation, and it is given in the mandibular arch. It is very effective even to bring about minor tooth movements. So the Nance lingual arch holding appliance, as it is called, it plays an important role. It is used to maintain the posterior space in the primary dentition. So if the primary teeth is lost, so that space which is lost is maintained if we give the Nance arch holding appliance. The lingual arch is often suggested when teeth are lost in both the quadrants of the same arch. If in the same arch, if the tooth is lost in both the quadrants, then we have to give lingual arch appliance, but only if the central permanent incisors have erupted. It not only controls, the appliance not only controls the anterior posterior movement, but it also controls the arch perimeter distortion, any lingual collapse or lingual tilting of a single tooth or a segment of the arch. So the means used to anchor the arch wire to the bands will define whether the lingual arch is of a removable type or a fixed type. So because the permanent incisors tooth buds develop and erupt lingual to the primary precursors, a conventional mandibular lingual arch is not recommended if the primary dentition, So as I have already discussed it, that if it is a primary dentition and bilateral loss of primary teeth and your permanent central incisors have not erupted, then you have to give band and loop space maintainer. But if the permanent central incisors have erupted and there is bilateral loss of tooth, then you have to give a Nance lingual arch holding appliance. Why we wait for the permanent incisors to erupt to give the this appliance? Because as we have discussed, that is the permanent tooth bud erupts or develops lingual to the primary successor. So if you place the space maintainer there, the space maintainer will hinder the eruption of the permanent tooth. So the indications of Nance arch holding appliance, the mandibular arch appliance, is if there is premature loss of the multiple primary teeth after eruption of the permanent incisors, if the retention appliance after the tooth, for retention appliance after tooth movement during serial extractions also we give this appliance, and the resolution for minor anterior crowding. So how do we fabricate it? So we first do the banding. Here, as you can see in the picture, we first do banding of the first permanent molars, that is PFM is permanent first molars, after which impression is taken, and after the bands are seated onto the impression and the cast is made, after which the outline is of the lingual arch is made on the cast, and the wire component is made up of 0.9 millimeters of wire thickness wire. The wire should contacts the lower incisors above. It should contact the cingulum above the gingival papilla. Step lingual in there should be a step lingual in the canine region, contacts the gingival third of the primary molars or the edentulous ridge, and the middle third of the banded molars. And the wire should not be active, it should be passive. So what we have discussed is banding has to be done for the tooth, the permanent molars, after which outline has to be made for the lingual arch. The wire component should contact the cingulum of the lower incisors, your permanent incisors, as you can see here. It should contact the lower incisors above the gingival papilla. Then a step in the lingual in the canine region, after which it should contact the gingival third of the primary molars if primary molars are present, or the edentulous ridge, and then it should end into the middle third of the banded molars. The wire should be passive and not active. Moving on with the modification of the appliance, it's Hott's modification. So in the Hott's modification, you have 2-inch adjustment loops. As you can see here, these loops are given here. These loops are given so as to allow for some adjustments in the length. They are basically used for space regaining. Then you have the spurs or the Mersenne type. These spurs are placed distal to the anterior teeth. So this is a permanent teeth which is here. There are spurs distal to both the laterals, as you can see, and are placed distal to the anterior teeth to prevent any tipping or any distal migration of the anterior teeth. The advantages of the appliance is that it acts as a source of anchorage because it incorporates resistance of several teeth, as it incorporates resistance from the cingulum of the permanent incisors. Then as it is moving, then it is touching the gingival third of the canine, and if the primary molars are there, it's touching that also. So these are the tooth which is providing some amount of anchorage or resistance, and causes little or no inconvenience to the patient, allows for the individual tooth movement, and it is less bulky than the acrylic space maintainers. And the potential complications of the appliance being development of caries. So there might be habitual fiddling of the tongue, habitual fiddling by the tongue. Development of caries because if the patient is not maintaining good oral hygiene, that might cause the accumulation of food and caries. Then habitual fiddling by the tongue, so again that might cause distortion of the appliance, increased risk of tooth impaction distal to the permanent first molars. And then transverse restriction of the mandibular arch. There is transverse restriction of the mandibular arch and the wires may get distorted. As you can see here in this picture, so as you can see here, the anterior teeth, the lingual surface of the anterior teeth, the cingularium area is touching, after which the wire is offset and contours in the position, so it is basically avoiding the wire is being away from the path of eruption of the tooth, and it also avoid tongue irritation. Again, here in these two cases, in this case where this is after 6 months to a year, after which the post treatment, the patient previously, these are the permanent tooth, the tooth was extracted, primary teeth was extracted, the appliance was given, after which you can see the permanent tooth has erupted. Again, in this patient where you have the space loss, that is the D is missing, so banding is done for the permanent molars both the sides, and because the anterior teeth, all the 4 anterior teeth had erupted, so we cannot give band and loop space maintainer, then we have to give lingual arch holding appliance. So banding of the molars, permanent first molars, and the wire component is there. So the next appliance which we'll be learning about is the distal shoe space maintainer. It is also called as intra-alveolar or eruption guidance appliance. The name itself suggests that intra-alveolar, it is going inside the bone and then it is guiding the eruption of the tooth, or it is also called as the eruption guidance appliance. It guides the eruption of the permanent molars. So it is a fixed appliance and a non-functional. Was first reported by Willits. So it is used to maintain this space. If your E's are lost before the eruption of the first permanent molars, then this distal shoe maintains the space till the time the permanent first molar erupts. So an unerupted permanent first molar drifts mesally within the alveolar bone. If there is no primary second molar, the permanent first molar will drift mesally within the alveolar bone, and this will lead to loss of space if the tooth is lost prematurely, if the E is lost prematurely. So this results in mesial drift or loss of arch length, and there might be possible impaction of the permanent second molar, second premolar. So indications of distal shoe is if there is a premature loss of the second primary molars prior to the eruption of the permanent first molars. The contraindication being if there is loss of several teeth, you cannot give distal shoe. And if the patient has any systemic disease, like if the patient is suffering from any renal disorders or rheumatic fever, juvenile diabetes, or blood disorders, then again it is contraindicated because the appliance is intra-alveolar and all these will be a source of infection for the patient. So the disadvantages being because of its cantilever design and the fact that it is anchored occlusally convergent crown of the primary molar, the appliance is somewhat fragile. So basically the disadvantage of the appliance being it is fragile, the occlusal function is not restored, and hence there's lack of strength. And if the histological examination of the tissue shows that there is complete epithelialization does not occur after placement of the appliance. So there are two methods of fabrication of the distal shoe. So the factors that needs to be first considered for the application or the fabrication of the distal shoe is the length of extension. So how long should the extension be, and the width of the extension, and the contact area, the contact where it should be contacting on the permanent first molar. So there are two techniques, either it is direct or indirect technique of fabrication. So in the direct method we will be if the E is the primary second molar is to be extracted, Stainless steel, the tooth preparation is done for D, for stainless steel crown, after which a bar material distilled to the surface on the spot weld. Then you have to check for the bar material which has to be spot weld to the crown. Then you have to estimate the proper length of the bar, mark on the bar and then bend. So extract the primary second molar, allow the hemostasis to occur. Then you need to take radiograph with the appliance in place. So once the spot welding is done, you have to place the appliance into the extraction space and take a radiograph to before cementation. Then if the appliance is in the correct place, then you do cementation and an eruption of the permanent first molars replaced with the crown and loop appliance. Or in the indirect method, so in the first visit, so then the indirect method, the first visit, what you do, first prepare the tooth for the stainless crown, and then with the crown in place you have to take an impression. Then the lab work that you have to do, you have to estimate the distance of the band, or then trim the molar which is to be extracted from the cast. Then the bar is anchor bar is placed and soldering is done. And in the second visit you have to extract the tooth, after which radiograph is taken. Once the appliance is placed in place, radiograph is taken, and then cementation is done, and on eruption of the first permanent molars, replace the appliance with a crown and loop. So as you can see here, the mesodistal diameter of the tooth is taken, then after which the depth is also measured, then it is marked on the cast. The tooth is trimmed, that needs to be extracted, after which the bar is placed, and according to the depth and length of the bar, it is soldered to the crown. Once the patient comes, you have to extract the tooth, place it, take a radiograph, check for the position, and then cement it. So this is what you see after cementation, that the distal end, one end should be touching the mesial surface of the crown, so that will prevent the permanent molars to tilt mesially and prevent the loss of space in the arch. So as this patient, as you can see here, the molars were extracted, the E was extracted, D in which it was restored, crown was given, and then the appliance was given, the distal shoe appliance was given. As you can see here in the radiograph which was taken, the distal shoe, the bar is extending till the mesial surface of the crown, which guides the eruption of the permanent first molar. What are the potential complications of the space maintainers? So as we have in between, we have discussed few of the complications. It might cause soft tissue impingement, it might interfere with the eruption of the permanent successors, it might cause pain and discomfort to the patient. Plaque accumulation is the most important concern, because it might also cause demineralization of the tooth surface. Then there might be broken appliances, dislodged appliances, or even lost appliances. So the importance, we need to recall the patient after every 6 months to check the appliance. We check for any decalcification if it is occurred, because the band causes some amount of banding of the tooth causes some amount of decalcification. There might be even breakage, as you can see here. There might be even breakage of the appliance, then progression of the appliance, eruption of to check the eruption of the teeth. As you can see in this band and loop, space maintainer was given, but this tooth has since erupted. Now we can remove the space maintainer and then recall the patient for application of fluoride. So hence, to conclude the lecture, that space management is a very important integral part in pediatric dentistry, as we know, because these are the these teeth are the important tooth that guides the eruption of the permanent tooth, and they maintain the function, preserves the arch length. They also maintain the aesthetics and eliminate any potential psychological damage a child could face because of the result of premature loss of the teeth. Thank you. So we will be doing discussions in the Google Classroom. So do answer the questions what we mentioned. That will be helpful for you and me as well. Thank you.